Just a quick little PSA. We have 2 upcoming live shows. The live shows are on October 9th, 2021 for New York Comic Con, and October 17th, 2021 for DC Fandom. And both of those will be available on our profile on Spreaker if you go to bit.ly/TMRPC. Again, that's bit.ly/TMRPC. If you want to support the show, the best way you can is through any of the books or current ongoing Vela shorts that are being released on a regular basis. The easiest way to find this is to go to bit.ly/TMRbooks, and you'll have links there to everything. All of my Kindle books are available for free. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you don't have to pay anything. You get it with your subscription. You can read them all. They're all in screenplay format. That includes Swan Song, The Muses, Duet, In the End, Our Past Does Not Define Us. Anything else that I've written that's available on Kindle, it's available there. You can buy a soft cover if you want. There's a hardcover collection of all of the Swan Song books, all combined into one. That's available as a hardcover. You can pre-order Echo Alpha, which is coming out in November. All of these things are available if you go on Amazon. But quick link, if you go bit.ly/TMRbooks, I have them all there, nice, easily cataloged. Also, down toward the bottom, we have the Kindle Vela content. The first 3 episodes are always free, and then after that, there's a token system that you can use to read. Even if you don't like it, just give it a thumbs up. That way we can get it up higher so more people see it. So one final time, that's bit.ly/TMRbooks, and every Wednesday there's a new Vela book that goes up. Taser and Acrobat, Nanite and Rosebud, Tales from Another World, and The Alchemist and the Illusionist. All go up on Wednesdays, and it's all available on Kindle Vela. All of this is available bit.ly/TMRbooks. Sorry to overload the front, but before we start, one final thing. If you can please go on Apple Podcasts, if that's how you listen, and give us a 5-star rating, that would mean a lot. We're trying to get onto Rotten Tomatoes and sites like that, and we need to get more reviews to be accepted. So if you can go on and give us a 5-star review there, that would be amazing. Thank you very much. We appreciate everything you guys do when you listen. This week on 30-Minute Reviews, a fuck ton of news. From New York Comic Con, from what Marvel is doing with Agatha Harkness, to I don't even know what else to say. Plus, we're going to talk about a CW show that is rare and what happened to it this year. But we'll talk about that more later. This week on 30-Minute Reviews. Welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam. So we had the live show, and I don't think I addressed any of the news in the live show. This week we're going to, in the live show, when we do the DC Fandom show on Sunday at noon Eastern Time. So I can watch the Giants lose again later on in the day. So we're going to start with news. No movie this week, just because we are stuffed with news, and we also have 3 movies this weekend. We have Halloween Kills, we have The Last Duel, and we have, what was the last one? Fuck. Either Mass or, I forgot what the other one was. Love something, lonely, something, heart, love. It sounds like they smashed a bunch of words together that all sound familiar, but the movie's getting good reviews from what I've seen, so that's, happening this weekend. But because I'm busy, news episode, plus we're going to talk about The Republic of Sarah, which is a TV show that was kind of unceremoniously had its brief season 1 run on the CW. I watched the pilot this week, and I'm a little annoyed at myself for not watching it sooner. So let's start off. This is in chronological order of when it happened over the course of the last week since I recorded the last episode. So we'll start with the oldest news first. Over on the over on the Disney Plus, they have announced that they are, or it was reported by Variety, that there is currently an Agatha Harkness spin-off show in development. Now, before we look it up in arms about this, think about it like this. I'm assuming that what's going to happen here is there's a similar creative team and crew working on this show that worked on WandaVision. So it's not like they're doing anything new. It's just instead of doing a season 2 of WandaVision, it appears they would do an Agatha Harkness show instead. In the same way that I don't know if they're going to do a season 2 of Hawkeye, I think the Echo spin-off show would take Hawkeye's place. Granted, we haven't seen Hawkeye yet. We've seen a little bit of footage from a trailer. And Hawkeye doesn't start for another month, so it's entirely, almost a month to the day, so it's entirely possible that Hawkeye does happen, and it does get a season 2, but it's possible that Echo is also what season 2 is. So, with this Agatha Harkness show, I'm interested to see where it goes. I don't particularly think that we need to go this deep on this character. Like, I think that Agatha as a character in the MCU worked in the show she was in, and I don't think that going with a second time out with her, like in the space of the show, it makes sense to an extent for Agatha to be there, because what we need someone with magic powers to interfere with Wanda to get her to the headspace we need her in by the time we get to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. That needs to happen. If that doesn't happen, then Wanda, we don't have a movie there. I think that a world where now Doctor Strange needs to get another witch to kind of handle Wanda, someone who has more experience with, the level of what's going on with the Darkhold and all of that. I think that kind of makes sense. I could see that world working, because keep in mind, Doctor Strange, he has the training and he's been doing it for a while, but he really wasn't training for that long. And yeah, like he honed his craft over all the times he died living in that time loop against Dormammu, but for something like this, he hasn't really had a chance to deal with someone who has this power and has the literal centuries of knowledge at her disposal. I think that's an important thing for them to play with, and I think that's a good way to go. And if we're going to say that now Wanda is now, I think that's what ended up happening at the end of Multiverse of Madness, is Wanda is going to end up missing and teaming up with Agatha, and that's what the Agatha show is. I think that it's a backdoor WandaVision Season 2 more than anything else. Our next story is also, I think, pre-Comic-Con, or it happened at the same time as Comic-Con, is we got new expanded universe books for Star Wars announced. Which is interesting, because it seems like they're starting to move away from the High Republic, which is a shame to an extent. We got the new High Republic books announced, but these seem to be ancillary other things. So the only two that really seemed of interest, because there's an anthology book for mid-grade, which I'm fine with. I love the idea of doing a science fiction anthology at the mid-grade level, because I think if we look at like what science fiction is, some of the best science fiction I've read has come from anthologies. Like, I love The Mythic Dream. I talked about that at length. There's an episode that I did a while back about The Hidden Girl, which is Ken Liu's, and then Ted Chiang's Exhalation. And I love Stories of Your Life and other stories. And I think that if we want to get people into the short story style in a way that's not, here's a textbook that you have to read for school, and kind of introduce it in a way where it's not, this is for kids, so because that's what it is. For a while, like when I had to read short stories, it was kind of like you read short stories until about 5th or 6th grade, and then you moved on from there to novels, and it's like, and it was for school assignments. Now, if we look at, say, a good way to get people reading science fiction on an upper level is Star Wars. I remember being in 6th grade and I was reading I know it's shitty, but The Crystal Star. I was reading Assault on Corellia. All these Star Wars books that were not young adult or mid-grade books. They were books for adults, and they were Star Wars. And it's if you can get a kid reading, or you can get someone reading that, oh my god, they make science fiction for adults. It's not just for kids, and it's not just this prestige thing like horror, where it's we can look at it in that way. And I think that this mid-grade anthology is a great way to do that, to kind of bridge the gap from reading science fiction and reading a short story for school and kind of being oh, that's only for little kids, bridging that gap into, oh, you can use the short story in other ways. I think that's a great tool. But the two that really caught my eye are there's a book that is it's between 1 and 2, Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, about Obi-Wan 2 and 3, I'm sorry, Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, about Anakin and Obi-Wan and the Cato Nemoidia incident, which, if you remember your Star Wars, in Episode 3, after they land what's left of the Confederate ship on Coruscant, and they're walking away, Obi-Wan leaving, and Anakin says, "You owe me a nugget for saving your life for the 37th time." And Obi-Wan's 36, that incident on Cato Nemoidia doesn't count. And we never knew what that story was. We're going to find out what that story is next May. On top of that, it seems they're starting to expand on the sequel trilogy era in a more profound way. We had Rise of the Resistance, which was really the only, or Resistance something. It was a book by Rebecca Roanhorse, I think. Resistance Reborn was what it was called, by Rebecca Roanhorse, and it was kind of a bridge between 2 and 3. It was kind of interesting. Not a lot of Rey action, a lot of Poe and Finn being an old married couple. But we're getting a book about what happened on Exegol. Not on Exegol. What happened with Luke and Lando trying to get to Exegol. And I think that the description of the book kind of confirms what the novelization of The Rise of Skywalker kind of confirmed, which was that Janna, the other ex-stormtrooper that Finn meets on Endor, she is meant to be Lando's daughter. And it's not what it is in the movie, which is Lando very creepily coming on to this very young woman. Lando's I could probably still get it up one more time. Let's go give that a shot. No, it's meant to be his daughter. The book kind of implies that a little bit more and explains a little bit more what's going on, but as it did with the third act fight. But this is going to be an exploration in Luke and Lando going to that planet that I forget the name of, and the one where they're having the festival, where it's the first time that someone gets really fixated on finding out what Rey's last name is, where they face off with the Knights of Ren and they find the Sith Assassins ship. That one. What happened? Why did the trail go cold? And all of that. And I want to know why Luke gave up, and I want to know what happened. That's the book I'm most interested to read of the new announcements. In non-genre news, but still of interest to me, therefore of interest to all of you, they're making another sequel to that 70s show. Now, Danny Masterson aside, that 70s show is... It's one of my favorite sitcoms to rewatch. It is so funny, and it is just perfect. Going not perfect. The last few seasons suck, but it is one of those shows I could rewatch over and over again. There's so many funny moments and all of that. Then they did that 80s show, which I recall lasted 8 episodes and got canceled. Now they're doing a sequel series. So far, only Deborah Jo Rupp and Kurtwood Smith have signed on to return, which would be Red and Kitty Foreman, the parents. But the story is, it is now the 90s, and Donna and Eric have dropped off their daughter Leia to at their grandparents' house to spend the summer, and hijinks ensue. And I'll watch it. It's a 10 episode series on Netflix coming at some point in the near future. I'll watch it. I'm down for it. Hopefully it's good. We'll see though. We now know what's going on with Christopher Nolan. Now, to recap what went on with Christopher Nolan directed a number of movies, the Dark Knight trilogy. It follows the Prestige, Inception, all of that. His most recent movie, Tenet, was supposed to come out in 2020. Then the pandemic hit. He insisted the movie come out in theaters and not go to streaming. It had to be a theatrical release, and it had to come out. And this is going to be the movie that was going to save cinemas. It did not, and it caused it caused such a deficit for Warner Brothers. They lost so much money on that release that they were like, "Fuck it, we're not doing this again." And now all of 2021's movies are going day and date theatrical and on HBO Max. Now, Christopher Nolan apparently did not see the connection between his actions and this happening, and then goes, "Well, fuck you. This is ridiculous. Don't do this. This isn't right." And then, while there is the argument to be made, maybe the guy to make the argument isn't the guy who caused the problem in the first place. So all of that happens. He then leaves, and he now goes to Universal. We now know his Oppenheimer movie will be coming July 21st, 2023, and it will be coming out and distributed via Universal. Which is great, because NBC doesn't have a streaming service either, so, good job, Nolan. Like, is he equally pissed about Blumhouse releasing Halloween Kills on day and date this week? Like, come on. Like, you can have this kind of look, but honestly, his best bet, if he wanted to really make a statement about this, would have been to go to Sony, because Sony is the only studio committed to theatrical at this point. Because up until this point, every other studio that has had the opportunity has done day and date release in some fashion. Be it HBO Max with all their movies coming out in day and date. Paramount has had same day streaming for some of their movies. Peacock has had a few movies that are same day streaming. Disney Plus has had you have to pay extra, but it's still same day streaming and not just in theaters. The only major studio who hasn't done it is Sony, and that's where if this is really the moral stance you're taking, is that this is wrong and it shouldn't have been done. It should have gone. It should have gone to Sony. That should have been, if he was serious about this, and I would have been able to respect him a little bit more if that's what it is. But it's not, and it was never about that. This is a moral stance that he can take to try and get a better deal elsewhere. And it's kind of fucked up when people do that. Now, the next story is back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We are in pre-production on Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which comes out toward the end of the release calendar. I don't know if I have the date on hand, but it is coming out. It is coming out 2023, I think. Yeah, 2023 sounds right. Because 2022 is the holiday special. 2023 is the ending. And now, James Gunn said that the holiday special was going to introduce a major Marvel character. I kind of chalked it up as Santa Claus, because there's a famous Marvel comic where Santa Claus turns evil and gets an Infinity Gauntlet, which I would have pegged for what he's doing. But if we're talking major Marvel character, we now have a character cast as an actor cast as Adam Warlock. Will Poulter. To me, he is most... I know some people have watched Black Mirror Bandersnatch, and I have not watched that yet. But We Are the Millers, the boy in We Are the Millers, that's not... what's his name? I forgot the actor's name. I think it's an interesting choice. I wasn't committed to these fan casts that had Zac Efron in the role. As long as they can do the CG right, and I think it's more about voice and anything than physical appearance, because in the digital age, physical appearance can be modified to fit whatever it needs. I think that it's I'm willing to see where this is going to go. There's never been a casting where I'm like, fuck this. I'm willing to see where this goes. Next up, Doctor Who returns for season 13 on Halloween. Cool. I think this is the beginning of the end of Jodie Whittaker's tenure as the Doctor. So we'll see how this plays out. In 2022, Brian K. Vaughan will be returning to Saga, the comic that he did recently. I actually have the first collected edition in my bag that I've been meaning to read. I haven't read it yet. But, new comics, more comics is always good. So we'll see where that goes. At the box office this weekend, No Time to Die led, and it won with 30 million. Let There Be Carnage, I believe, bottomed out at 9 million. So I think we're continuing to see this trend where movies that aren't seen in the first weekend aren't getting viewed in subsequent weekends, because the people who skip it the first weekend aren't going to go and watch it in the future. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. As of earlier today being Wednesday the 13th, IATSE is about to strike. IATSE being the union of anyone who is not a director or a producer or a writer or an actor on a movie set, all of the production assistants and all of that kind of stuff. They're going to strike by Monday, this coming Monday, if a deal is not reached between them and the producers unions. Their demands have been pretty straightforward. I don't understand why this is a thing where they can't quite reach a deal on it. So that'll be interesting. In CW news, Barry, the showrunner of The Flash, Eric Wallace, said that Barry has the worst day of his life in the Season 8 crossover. The Season 8 crossover being Armageddon. Now, that's a pretty bold statement for someone. If we take a look at what Barry has gone through over the course of the show, it's like he's gone through some pretty fucked up shit. Like, the show opens with the murder of his mother at the hands of the Reverse Flash. He watches that murder at the end of the season in person, powerless to stop it, and has to cradle his mother as she dies. Then, the next season, his father gets murdered in front of him, so he goes and saves his mother, but the world gets fucked up as a result of that, so he has to, be an accessory to his mother's murder, and basically hire the Reverse Flash to kill her. And it's like, okay, so all of that's happening, and then it's like Season 3, he watches Iris die. Season 4, he's in prison for murder, for a small arc, after being, the day after his wedding, being arrested for murder, for allegedly murdering Clifford DeVoe. There's a lot of fucked up shit that's gone on. And then, Season 5, his daughter gets erased from the timeline in front of him. There's all, and Season 6, he went through the first half of Season 6 expecting to die, knowing he was going to sacrifice himself in Crisis, knowing that he was getting towards that newspaper. So he was counting the days till his death. Then he gets to Crisis. He watches himself from an alternate universe die. He watches all the universes around him die. He watches Oliver die. There's no shortage of bad shit that happens to this kid. So no, you know what? I don't think this should be the worst day of his life. I want to know what they could possibly do at this point that could make this the worst day of his life. That's a challenge. You have now set yourself up for a challenge that I do not think you'll be able to meet. So, good luck. Now, I think that is it. Barry's the worst day of his life. Oh, Masters Universe Revelation Part 2. I did like Part 1, so I'm looking forward to this. Part 2 of Masters Universe Revelation is coming out on November 23rd. Looking forward to this. I want to see where the show ends off. I want to see how it goes. So that will be on November 22nd. Our two final stories for today are a little bit on a serious note. Number one, Ruthie Thompson died. She was 111 years old. If you don't know the name, maybe you know some of her work. She was an animator on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Pinocchio, Peter Pan, a bunch of the Disney movies from the early eras. If you read the book The Queens of Animation, which I highly recommend you do, it is a fantastic look at the women who broke the glass ceiling at the Walt Disney Company back in the 30s and 40s and 50s. Just an amazing life this woman led. She was doing movies well through her life, even into, I believe, the 70s. She was still working at Disney. She didn't retire until the 80s. 111 on its own, living to be 111 is an achievement, but living to be 111 and also having that impact, not just working on these movies, but being one of the few women who was working as an animator, not just as an ink and paint girl, truly an achievement. She's someone who, I would be willing to bet money right now she's going to be omitted from the in memoriam section of next year's Oscars, but her achievement is her death. I don't think has gotten the fanfare it deserves, which sounds mean when I put it that way, but she deserves more accolades for all that she did in her lifetime. And then the second story, if you don't follow sports, you probably don't know about the incident going on with John Gruden. The only reason we're talking about this is because of something that broke today, based on how it goes into journalistic ethics. I've talked about that a lot recently. So John Gruden, former coach, well, now former, he was the coach this season of the Los Angeles Raiders, the football team, and he had a bunch of emails come out as a result of a investigation into the Washington football team, that had him using just disgusting language about race and sexuality, and it's just disgusting. And all of that comes out. He gets one of those things like leave now or we'll fire you, and he's like, all right, fine, I'll resign. So he resigned. But today a story came out as the press sifts through these emails. It came out that Adam Schefter has been in the past talking directly to executives at the Washington football team, and were coordinating response on how to handle labor dispute conversations. It'd be like if someone at Variety were talking to someone in the Producers Guild about how to handle coverage of the impending IATSE strike, to put it into perspective. And if the name Adam Schefter sounds familiar to you, if you have the ESPN app, you've probably seen his name pop up because he is the point man at ESPN for anything to do with the NFL. And then someone came out today and said, well, this is normal. It's like, well, no, that's not normal. Maybe it's normal to reach out for comment. Like, we're running the story about you tomorrow. Do you want to comment on it before I come out and run this story? That could be detrimental to your career or to your image. Like, that is perfectly within the confines. But for a reporter who is supposed to be impartial, who is reporting on labor negotiations, I don't think it's good for that reporter to be working with and taking notes on language and coverage of one of the sides of the labor of the disputing parties. And it especially isn't a good look for him to take the side of ownership and of the owners and not the side of the NFL Players Association, especially when he works for ESPN, which is owned by the Walt Disney Company, which is currently embroiled in a number of disputes with their talent and the people who work for them, especially with this IATSE strike impending. Like, I think that this is a very bad look for them. I think that, quite honestly, ESPN should cut ties. If they don't cut ties, I think it's indicative of a larger issue where ESPN is taking sides and is not doing impartial reporting, as they've led us to believe. I think this is a bigger deal, not in the grand scheme of things, but I think that to not touch on this as an entertainment podcast would be a misfire, because it's still an important issue and it's still something that needs to be addressed. So that'll be our last news story for this week. Let's talk about the Republic of Sarah, which is a CW show. Now, CW does this thing. It's kind of the home of genre TV that, NBC, and because NBC and all of them are kind of very dependent on, big things that are more traditional. The police procedural, the search and rescue show, the sitcom, all of that. To their credit, the CW doesn't really do that. The CW does more of, like, we're going to experiment a little bit. Granted, they also have, 12 DC Comics-based shows, but they take bigger swings on that. And granted, also, the 12 DC shows is off of 11 seasons of Smallville, and they ran Supernatural for 15 years, and all of that. But they do take these bigger swings on genre concepts, like Charmed, they went with Riverdale for a little bit. They went with Dynasty got rebooted, which is very different from everything else. Roswell, New Mexico, 4400. They have a lot of shows that are kind of different and kind of unique in that way. And one of these shows was the Republic of Sarah, and this debuted over the summer. I watched the first episode of it, and it's a pretty cool concept. I'm surprised that this show didn't get as much attention as it should have. Basically, the idea is it's a small town in New Hampshire on the border of Canada, and because of how the town falls, it was never claimed by the United States or Canada, technically, based on existing treaties. So it kind of falls in this gray area where it's not, American, it's not Canadian, and at the same time, this town is also sitting on a large amount of unobtainium, which is, I don't remember the name of the mineral that, it is, but major tech companies need this mineral for their stuff. So this tech company comes in, is trying to buy up the town, and this woman, Sarah, who's a school teacher, is like, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to let you come in and take over our town and take whatever you want and do whatever you want to us. We're going to stand our ground and do whatever we want. And you can't take that from us. So they decide to secede. So the entire first episode is leading up to this election and the decision to secede from the United States. And it's an interesting show. I really like this show. I'm disappointed that it got canceled. You can find it on HBO Max if you want to watch the pilot. Next week I'll watch the second episode. I didn't watch more because, again, busy week with the fucking 9 million movies and What If and all of that. But definitely worth your time to watch this movie if you have not watched it already. This TV show. You can find it on HBO Max. So until next week is Dune week. So we'll be discussing Dune, David Lynch's Dune, the sci-fi original series Dune, the sci-fi original series Children of Dune, all of that cool stuff next week, as well as the books. So get ready. There will be a spoiler tag on the episode, so get ready for that. What else have we got? We've got Beware of Spoilers all this week. To our YouTube viewers / listeners, welcome back. We're back to YouTube. If you want to subscribe, you can subscribe on our YouTube channel. You can subscribe on wherever you get your podcasts, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. If you have Apple Podcasts, we're trying to get on to Rotten Tomatoes. So if you can please on Apple Podcasts, really all of them, but Apple Podcasts is the one they're specific about. We need to get a bunch of ratings. So if you can give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, it'll make it easier for people to find us. So if you can do that, that'd be great. But until next week, have a great rest of your week. Do you like the show? Do you hate the show? Are you indifferent to the show? No matter what, you should probably let us know what we're doing so we can change it to better suit you, the listener's needs. You can go to either bit.ly/BOScontact, which is a contact form page you can use. Also, you can just email us directly at 30minutereviews@gmail.com. If you have questions that you would like us to answer, we can answer them on the air. We have a few questions every week that will be selected to be answered on air. So if you want to tell us what we should do, or if you have a suggestion for a movie or a TV show or something we should cover, go to bit.ly/BOScontact and also email us 30minutereviews@gmail.com.